The wind howled across the blackened plains of Eldrith, carrying with it the ashes of burnt forests and the faint scent of despair. The kingdom had grown silent. Markets once lively with laughter and music were now empty, the stalls rotting beneath a gray sky. People whispered of curses, of old gods who had forgotten them, and of shadows that moved when no one watched. In the heart of this desolate land stood the ancient cathedral of Eldrith's kings, its tall spires broken and jagged against the storm-filled sky. Within its shattered walls walked Princess Lysera, the last hope of a dying kingdom. Her steps echoed softly on the cracked marble floor, a rhythm of quiet persistence. She carried herself with grace, yet her eyes held a storm of their own, fear, determination, and a silent plea that had gone unanswered for too long. Lysera knelt before the altar, her hands clasped tightly. The statues of old gods towered above her, their stone faces unreadable, as if they had already turned away. "Please," she whispered, her voice trembling but steady. "Hear us, hear me. Eldrith suffers, its people suffer, and still you do not come." His eyes were sharp, cold, and unreadable, yet there was a weight behind them, a sorrow that seemed as old as the mountains surrounding Eldrith. He had come from a distant, forbidden land, a place where people whispered that the dark forces themselves were born. He did not answer her prayers. He did not approach her. He simply observed, as though waiting to see whether the princess's hope was strong enough to survive her despair. Lysera rose, her white gown brushing against the cracked stone floor, dust rising like tiny clouds around her feet. She sensed the presence behind her before she saw him. Turning slowly, she met Kaelin's gaze. "You shouldn't be here," she said, her voice firm, though her heart fluttered at the sight of him. "I go where I am needed," Kaelin replied softly, his voice like the whisper of wind across a graveyard. "But the question is, are you ready to be helped? Are you friend or foe?" She had pleaded with kings, with neighboring lands, even with the old priests who still lingered in Eldrith, but no world listened. They had ignored her cries, dismissed her as a naive princess clinging to impossible hope. Kaelin stepped closer, though never invading her space. "You fight alone because you must. Only those who face despair without surrender understand its depth. But survival does not mean salvation." Kaelin's gaze sharpened, and Lysera felt a chill crawl along her spine. "What is that?" she whispered. "The beginning of what we feared," Kaelin said, his voice now tense. "They are coming. And Eldrith, your Eldrith has called to the void long enough. You are braver than most mortals I have seen, but bravery alone will not stop what approaches. But you must understand, once we do, there is no turning back. Not for you, not for me. The path ahead, it is darker than the night you see now." His presence was commanding, dangerous, yet strangely comforting. "Very well," he said, "then let us begin." The distant light on the horizon grew brighter, revealing shapes that twisted and writhed, towering figures that moved with unnatural grace, their eyes glowing like frozen stars. Lysera stopped, staring. "What are they?" "Your world's cry has finally been heard, but at what cost?" It was a simple touch, but it carried the weight of shared fear, shared hope, and an unspoken connection neither fully understood yet. "They are coming for us," she said, voice trembling but resolute. "And we will meet them together." Their forms were immense, cloaked in shadows that seemed to writhe and shift independently. Some had faces, others masks of unrecognizable shapes. The light that emanated from them was cold yet mesmerizing. A voice, deep and resonant, echoed across the plains, vibrating in the bones of all who heard it. "Your time of silence ends now." The kingdom that had been silent, abandoned, and forgotten was about to face a force beyond imagining. And standing at the forefront, hand in hand yet hearts bound by unspoken truths, Lysera and Kaelin prepared to meet it, not as helpless victims, but as the last defenders of a dying world. Somewhere deep in the horizon, lightning split the sky, illuminating the strange figures for a heartbeat. And in that fleeting moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. For Eldrith, silence had ended. The black horizon of Eldrith trembled as the Deathworlders advanced, their forms immense and otherworldly, shifting with every step. Villages that had survived the long famine now faced a terror unlike any mortal mind could comprehend. Rivers blackened, crops withered in a day, and even the animals seemed to flee in silent panic. Princess Lysera stood atop the highest tower of the ruined citadel, her white gown billowing like smoke in the wind. The storm overhead reflected the turmoil within her heart. Beside her, Kaelin remained calm, his dark cloak pressed tightly to his frame. The wind tugged at his hair and shadows clung to him as if alive. "They are everywhere," Lysera said, her voice tight. "How do we stop them? The world ignored our plea, Kalen. Now they answer in terror." "You do not stop them by fighting blindly," he said. "You must understand them. Their power is tied to fear, to despair. And yet, even despair has rules." "What do you mean?" "And now, how does this help us?" The Deathworlders had come closer, their movements more deliberate now, almost as if they were circling, studying the kingdom and its last defenders. "They feel our presence," Kalen said, his voice low. "And they are curious, dangerous curiosity." "You are brave, Lysera, brave enough to challenge forces that could erase you with a thought, but bravery alone is not enough. Not even a shadow-bound warrior like me." "I will try, I will follow." Shadows moved between the trunks, sometimes resembling beasts, sometimes shapes that defied understanding. "This place," Lysera whispered, "it feels alive and angry. One misstep, and it could consume us. Why stay with me when you could? Leave." "Then we will face it together," she said, her voice firmer now. "No matter the cost." They reached the heart of the forest, where a clearing opened, bathed in a strange, shimmering light. In the center stood a crystalline mirror, its surface rippling as though liquid, reflecting not just their faces but the hidden truths of their hearts. "This," Kalen said softly, "is the mirror of truth. It can reveal the path to stopping the Deathworlders, but beware it does not lie. It shows what is, what must be, and what will be if you falter. Only then will you understand what you are willing to risk." Kalen took a step closer. "It is not real," he said softly. "It is only one possibility, a world that could be if we fail. Do not let it control you." Their eyes glowed like frozen stars, and their presence was suffocating, yet mesmerizing. Lysera felt fear claw at her, but she did not step back. Kalen's voice was steady, though his own eyes were wary. "Stay close. They will test you not just with power, but with what you fear most. Stand together. Do not falter." Some had faces, others only masks of light and darkness. Whispers echoed in Lysera's mind, warnings, temptations, voices from the past. She squeezed Kalen's hand, grounding herself in his presence. "You will not break me," she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. One of the Deathworlders stepped forward, its form immense, its voice a deep resonance that vibrated through the forest. "You call for aid, yet the world ignored your plea. Do you truly believe your courage is enough?" Kalen's grip on her hand tightened. "Now," he said, "we move forward, one step, one choice, one truth at a time, together." And somewhere deep in the shadows, the Deathworlders watched, their curiosity deepening, their attention fixed on the two mortals brave enough, or foolish enough, to defy them. The forest seemed to breathe with them, alive with tension, fear, and hope. Lysera and Kalen, hand in hand, took their first steps into a battle that would decide the fate of Eldrith, and perhaps the fate of every world that had ignored the cries of the desperate. The first shadow fell upon them, but they did not falter. The sky above Eldrith had grown darker than night, yet lightning cracked intermittently, casting the ruined citadel in silver light. Storm clouds roiled like living things, and the winds carried whispers that seemed almost human. Below, the plains had turned to mud and ash, blackened by the Deathworlders' passing. Eldrith's people huddled in broken villages, their hope fragile, yet flickering like embers that refused to die. Princess Lysera stood on the highest tower once more, her hair and gown whipping in the wind. Beside her, Kalen's dark cloak fluttered, and shadows seemed to cling to him, moving as though alive. His face was pale, eyes sharp and restless, and there was a tension in him that made the air between them almost electric. "You have changed," Lysera said softly, watching him. "The forest, what it did to you." He turned, gaze fixed on the distant horizon where the Deathworlders had left trails of black flame and twisted earth. "I survived their hold," he said finally, his voice low. "But their touch leaves marks. I feel their shadow inside me now. Sometimes I control it. Sometimes it threatens to control me. Kalen, I don't know if I can help you." "Including you." "The Deathworlders are returning, stronger than before." The sound of hearts beating together became a drum that echoed across the ruined city. And above all, Kalen moved like a shadowed protector, his presence both terrifying and comforting, as if darkness itself could guard them. The Deathworlders appeared first as distant shapes, rising from the ash-strewn fields. Then, as if called by some silent command, they began to move closer. Their forms were immense, lithe and inhuman, shadows folding and unfolding with unnatural grace. Their eyes glowed like frozen stars, fixed upon the citadel and its defenders. Lysera swallowed, gripping her staff tightly, a relic from the old kings etched with runes of protection. "Kaelin, what do we do?" "The Shadow Pact, your courage and my control of the darkness. It is the only way to face them." "We begin." The first of the Deathworlders reached the gates. Its shadow stretched like liquid, swallowing the ground beneath it. Lysera felt a wave of fear, the instinct to flee, yet she did not move. Kaelin's grip tightened, anchoring her. Together they stepped forward, their combined power pushing against the dark tide. The battle was not of swords or fire, but of wills. The Deathworlders probed their minds, their fears, their doubts. Lysera saw visions of the citadel crumbling, of villagers disappearing into shadow, of Kaelin turning against her. Her heart ached, yet she forced herself to see the truth. Fear was only a test. She could not allow it to control her. Kaelin fought beside her, his shadowed power rippling outward, repelling the Deathworlders' influence. But each strike, each surge of dark energy cost him. His pale face shone with sweat and strain. "Do not let them break your heart," he warned. "They feed on despair, do not give it to them." For Eldrith, for its people, for hope. The darkness inside him surged, hungry, unpredictable. He fell to one knee, hands gripping his head. I cannot hold it much longer," he gasped. Lysera knelt beside him. "Then I will help you. We are together in this." Kaelin felt it too, her strength, her courage, her willingness to sacrifice. Slowly, the darkness that threatened to consume him softened, folding into a controlled form, guided by their shared bond. For a fleeting moment, victory seemed possible. The Deathworlders faltered, their curiosity turning to wariness. They hissed, twisting in the storm, but they did not retreat. Kaelin's chest heaved. "It is not enough," he said, voice strained. "They will return stronger, and this time I fear even our bond may not hold." Its face, if it could be called a face, was a mask of shifting darkness and light. Its voice, when it spoke, was like the echo of the universe itself. "You bind shadow with light," it said, "and yet, how long before the shadow consumes you both? How long before hope falters and despair reigns? Eldrith will survive. And as long as we stand together, you cannot break us." The Deathworlder tilted its massive form, and for a heartbeat, the world seemed to hold its breath. Then it retreated slightly, shadows folding into itself, whispering. Kaelin's eyes met hers, dark and intense. "A choice that will test everything we are and everything we hold dear. Whatever it is, we will face it together." In the distance, the wind whispered again, carrying a warning, a promise, and a challenge. The battle for Eldrith was far from over. The first light of dawn struggled through the thick storm clouds above Eldrith, casting the ruined kingdom in a pale, gray glow. The streets were silent except for the occasional gust of wind, carrying the scent of ash and rain. The land was battered, yet it breathed. The fight was not yet over. Princess Lysera stood atop the citadel's highest tower, her eyes scanning the horizon. Villages burned faintly in the distance, blackened by the Deathworlders passing, yet some lights flickered stubbornly, signs of life that refused to bow. Her gown clung to her from the rain, and her hands were sore from the struggle of the past nights. Still, she felt an unshakable resolve. Kaelin knelt beside her, his dark cloak torn in places, his face pale but determined. The shadow within him pulsed faintly, a dangerous rhythm that had become a part of him since their encounter with the Deathworlders. He had learned to control it partially, but every surge of power risked consuming him entirely. "They will not relent," Kaelin said quietly, his voice heavy with concern. "The leader, he will come, and he will test everything we have built. Because together, we are stronger than the darkness itself." Lysera gripped her staff, feeling the hum of energy between her and Kaelin. "This is it," she whispered, "the final test. You have defied despair longer than most mortals. Yet the end approaches. One choice stands before you, sacrifice or destruction. Which will you choose?" It stretched its massive arms, and shadows rippled outward, sweeping across the citadel. Villagers screamed as the darkness approached, yet Lysera and Kaelin remained steadfast. Kaelin placed a hand on Lysera's, their connection a surge of power that mixed shadow and light. "Trust me," he said. "All of it, every fear, every doubt, let it flow through us, not against us." Closing her eyes, she focused, letting her courage, hope, and love for Eldrith and its people pour into their bond. A radiant energy flared around them, faint at first, then growing, weaving together Kaelin's shadowed power and her light. The storm above responded, lightning and wind bending around them, as though the world itself recognized their unity. The Deathworlder struck first, shadows lashing toward them, twisting reality around them. Lysera's staff glowed, deflecting the tendrils of darkness. Kalen's shadow surged to meet it, forming a shield of swirling black and silver energy. Together they pushed back, step by step, until the creature faltered. "You are strong," the being said, voice tinged with something almost like respect. "But are you strong enough to endure loss? Not to destroy you, but to save Eldrith." Lysera felt the energy draining her, each pulse a reminder of the sacrifice she was making. Yet through the pain, she felt Kalen's power stabilizing, bending the darkness into a form that could defend, not destroy. "You are incredible," Kalen whispered, his voice strained with effort. "Even now, even in sacrifice, you shine brighter than anything I have ever known." Each movement was synchronized, a dance of power and will, until finally the Deathworlder faltered completely. With one final surge, Lysera poured all her remaining strength into the bond. Kalen's shadow flared, wrapping around the creature and constraining it while her light penetrated its core. There was a flash like the breaking of dawn, a roar that shook the skies, and then silence. The Deathworlder vanished, leaving only a ripple of shadow that dissolved into the wind. The other Deathworlders, scattered across the plains, recoiled and withdrew. The storm clouds above Eldrith began to break, revealing the faint glow of sunlight. Kalen collapsed to his knees, drained but alive. Lysera sank beside him, her strength nearly spent, but her eyes shone with relief. "We did it," she whispered. He looked at her, a faint smile forming despite his exhaustion. "We did it together." Part of her essence had merged with Kalen's shadowed power. She was alive, yet not entirely whole in the mortal world. She could sense herself existing in two planes, one tangible, one ethereal. Kalen noticed her hesitation. "Lysera. The bond, it changed us. Then Eldrith will heal, and we will find a way to live with this." Kalen took her hand, his shadow now calm, controlled, a part of him, but no longer a threat. "We fought despair," he said softly. "We faced shadow, and we survived. The world owes no one a second chance, Lysera, yet we have earned one. And together," she said, "we will make the most of it." Kalen and Lysera stood side by side atop the citadel, hand in hand, watching as the first real day of hope in decades unfolded. Their journey had cost them much, yet they had gained something greater, each other, their trust, and a future worth protecting. And somewhere beyond the horizon, whispers of a new dawn carried through the air. And those who faced the shadow together, they will be remembered.